Good evening. Thank you for joining us for tonight's Dixie Fire Incident Update. My name is Antonio Negretti. I'm one of the public information officers assigned to the incident. Usually we're able to come to you live and you're able to see our live stream as it's happening in our studio. We were informed that we were having technical difficulties, so our solution is we are currently recording our live stream so that we may post it immediately to our Facebook page. You will still have the opportunity to ask questions under the current banner that we have posted on the LMU Facebook page. We apologize for any inconvenience, but we will still be able to answer your questions. Thank you for understanding. This evening, you will be hearing from various experts in their field, updating you on recent evacuations, fire activity, and weather. Don't forget, you are still able to answer or ask questions under the current banner that we have posted, and our speakers will answer those questions afterwards. Just go ahead and list them below. First, let me bring you the latest numbers regarding the Dixie Fire. The Dixie Fire is currently at 898,951 acres of involvement with 56% containment. There are currently 3,847 personnel assigned to the incident. I'd like to now introduce you to our first speaker. Please welcome incident meteorologist Benjamin Bardis.
Evening, everybody. I'm incident meteorologist Ben Bardis, or the meteorologist assigned to the fire. Did swap out with Derek Williams, who was here the past couple weeks. He went back to his home station, and I'll be here on the Dixie West Complex for the next 2 weeks. So the big message for weather here the next couple days is we have a pretty strong high-pressure system over Western California, Nevada, and that's bringing this kind of heat and dry that we have. We expect that to continue through tomorrow, and that will actually be the peak of when it'll be the most hot and the most dry, with temperatures in the valley areas getting up to lower to mid-90s and areas of higher elevations getting into the upper 80s. Like I said, very dry as well. Our relative humidities are going to get down to less than 10%. And overnight, we're really not going to see much moisture really develop, or those relative humidities aren't really going to recover, as we call it, either. So just hot and dry sustained through Tuesday. And then Tuesday we'll have some winds starting to pick up. That'll move over the fire, and not too bad, maybe 20, 25 miles per hour on ridge tops, but something that we're paying attention to. And then later in the week, we'll start to see maybe some more moisture work its way in, a bit of a cool off Tuesday into Wednesday as well. Still warm in the 80s, but not quite as hot as it has been, as this high pressure system moves away from us and allows some cooler temperatures and a little bit more moist air to work in. That's all I've got tonight, and I'll field any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was our new incident meteorologist, Benjamin Bardis. The next speaker we have for you tonight is our fire behavior analyst, Chief Don Watt.
Good evening. Don Watt, fire behavior analyst for Cal Fire Incident Management Team 1. So just talk real quick about how the fire's looking on the fire behavior side. The weather has definitely picked up some activity in certain areas. For the most part, in this lower section, it's actually looking pretty good. We still have smoke production from some of the heavy materials burning out, and that will continue over the next couple weeks until we get good moisture probably in some of these interior. So on the top part, you still have a lot of interior islands burning. Those green belts are slowly consuming up. The big thing that happened today is we did see a little increased activity just inside the Lassen Park area. The wind came up a little bit with the dry humidity and the warm temperatures, and that increased the burning. The big thing, as you heard from the IMET, we are experiencing kind of that warming, drying trend through tomorrow. And we're not going to have the humidity recover overnight. So that allowed it to burn better throughout the night in that top section. And then we still have some spotting issues over on the Lassen sector, kind of coming out of that Caribou Wilderness. There's still those green islands that are burning out, and that does produce some problems for spotting. They are staying short range, and it's been pretty productive for the crews on the ground to be able to pick them up. Most of this is looking good. The only other concern that we're looking at is down here near the Highway 395 corridor. We've been very fortunate the fact that the smoke has been shading out the valley, kind of keeping it cool. We haven't seen a big run down that slope, but it is something we're just concentrating on to make sure that we advise the fire crews how the fire's doing and if there's any change in that fire behavior.
Thank you, Chief Watt. Just a reminder, if you're just tuning in to watch our live stream, we are currently having technical difficulties, and our live stream is being recorded as we bring you all the speakers. You still have the opportunity to ask your questions on the comments below under the current banner that we have on the Facebook page for the CAL FIRE LMU. And with that being said, I'd like to bring up our next speaker. It is our Operations Section Chief Mike Wink. Chief Wink.
Good evening. So current situation here in Branch 9, the Warner Valley, and all these areas from Chester to the west. We continue to be out there looking for hotspots, calls for service. While people are back in there, they're seeing things that are still smoldering. They're getting us out there, and we're getting those things mocked up. We call that tactical patrol. Okay, so that's kind of an ongoing issue. Up here in Branch 13 in the park, you heard the fire behavior analyst mention we had a little bit of activity right here where it's purple on the map. That is in the Hat Creek corridor. It is staying in the Hat Creek corridor. It is to the east of Lost Creek. Lost Creek is out here. Hat Creek is to the east of there. So it is in Hat Creek. It's on both sides of the creek, but it is in the, below Raker Peak and at the toe of the slope as it goes through that little valley. So they're keeping it held in there. They're working with crews and laying hose and trying to keep that contained as they take it to the north and the east on the trail system, and then keeping it off of Raker, going up Rail Canyon, and then tying it back into West Prospect is kind of what's going on out there. As you get up here in the Shasta sector, no change, just working on egress and ingress corridors. Come over here into the Lassen sector into Branch 16. This afternoon, just like the weather and the fire behavior folks just talked about, the fuels, the probability of ignition is really causing some challenges for spot fires. You've heard us talk about that for the last 10 days or so. So we yesterday had some challenges for the last couple of days kind of to the north of this section along 44. That's looking good today, but this afternoon we have a 25-acre spot fire just outside our containment line, but still within Highway 44 and our contingency lines, because we're always doing primary, secondary contingency. So they're out there flying fixed-wing aircraft, have ground resources at scene, making good progress. As the sun goes down, conditions typically moderate, and we should be making good progress on that. As we come down here into the Westwood area, this Highway 36 corridor, same message as over here in Branch 9, looking at those calls for service, looking at some of those kind of swampy areas around the lakes and some moister meadows and stuff like that. They just kind of hold smoldering material, so that's going to be an ongoing item that we'll be addressing. Come around here into the Janesville branch. We have a lot of things going on in there. Everybody's probably aware that the fire has come off the escarpment in a very unusual condition. Things are very calm. The smoke shading has kept Honey Lake from heating up and creating that windy condition on the 395 corridor, so that's working really well for us. This is slow, low-intensity fire coming off the escarpment, getting into the grass, getting into our dozer line. We have a lot of holding resources out there with engines, a lot of dozers parked all along the toe of the slope. You may not see them from the highway, but they are out there, and those efforts will continue while we work with our East Zone partners here to continue to build this box and strengthen these lines and make sure we keep this south of Milford down to the Beckworth burn scar and protect everything that's in here. So the line coming up behind the motorcycle track is that box. So no fire growth in this area. Here up by Heavenly, up in the top on the other side of the escarpment, sorry, right over here, You see a little area purple there. That's about a 105-acre little fire outside the edge of the control line that we had hose on. Once again, we're up there with dozers, crews, and engines, laying hose, working with our East Zone partners with all their resources and leadership, supporting each other, trying to get this piece contained. And as a reminder, this is the general area of the Walker fire burn scar. So this is kind of an area of fuels reduction. That's why you don't see any fire growth in there. So that is your current system situation update. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Wink, for that great information. We'd now like to take you to the East Zone for a video featuring the Operations Chief, Ian Satterfield.
All right, good evening. Ian Satterfield, Planning Ops Trainee. I'm going to start off today in Branch 30 up here in Oscar. For the most part, we had a really solid day. Still have crews engaged with hose lays and dozer line. It was tied in. Just about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, they did get a slop over the line. Last I heard, it was about 40 acres, but crews were engaged and working very diligently to suppress that. Coming around the horn on top, the escarpment, it is backing down. We are in partnership with our folks to the west with Milford Group and the Junction Group, and they've got a solid plan in place as this comes off to be able to capture it in 1, 2, or 3 different dozer lines as it comes down. They were also up today working on. They came over and caught the edge of this and put some dozer line in the little corner here, and they were working trying to bring this around and tie it back into the sugar fire on the top. Coming down into Papa and Quebec, down into that Dixie Valley area. Crews have been engaged with structure protection in there. Our line that was from last night held today. They continued with some hand line, improving it up. There was a large rock scurry up top that they were trying to work to get that tied into to give something for the crews tonight to anchor off of. To keep this from progressing to the south. We did have fire from the other side come out, and it actually went back with that southwesterly wind and pushed itself back into the fire and crossed back over the 01. And as you can see, it had done the same thing up here, and so there's a couple of structures that are being threatened. We have crews in there trying to get into it and do structure protection as the safety allows. Crews are still working on developing and putting in dozer line around the Dixie Valley area, and we'll have folks in there all evening with structure protection. One of the things we are using, we're trying to take advantage of some of the dozer line that was created when the Dada fire was out, and so we've been out looking at areas to improve and continue on to try and tie this dozer line into the Dada fire as well as into the bottom. As you can see on the map, we've got a contingency line that runs down along the 117 and the power line. We've gotten almost down to where it comes off of the private. Plan is to bring it down and around and tie it back into here. And I know crews are looking at other opportunities of tying it back up into the hill if there's some different fuel types that we can get it tied into. We also have the 117 and the Beckworth-Milford Road. Crews are in there improving that as another contingency line. Continuing around in Quebec, crews have done a good job. That Coyote Hills area, that we've been able to hold that all day, even with the increased fire behavior in there, and things are looking good in there. Coming around into Turner Ridge, again, things are looking good. We're mopping up, and line is secure in there. Kind of bumping out to Structure Group. Like I stated, we have folks in the Dixie Valley. We also have folks down here in the Grizzly Heights area. One of the things we did do for tomorrow's plan is we have we've split our structure group into 2. We were able to get some more leadership. So we'll have Dixie structure group, and we'll have actually Portola structure group. The names really are more for us as ease. Groups for us are able to be mobile and move around, so it doesn't mean that they're just stuck in this one location. So the Portola structure group, if there was something over here in Greenhorn, they can move around and adjust to fight fire over there. Jumping back into the map, looking at Romeo, all the way up the Grizzly Ridge, all the way up here to the top. Things are looking good. The crews are in there mopping up. We've had no issues, no spots. And you can see actually up here on the top, we have a little piece of line that we've put in as black line and secure. Moving into uniform, crews continue to improve the lines on the north end up there by DP 219, strengthening that, as well as evaluating this and continuing to strengthen the line on the north. The Devil's Punch Bowl still has the fire in there, and crews are using some rotor wing, keep that in check until we have the right conditions, the right moment to be able to deal with that. So continuing to assess and reassess the operations in there. Working into Genesee Valley, crews are working super hard to continue to mop. One of the things to take note is 65% of the Genesee Valley we've got is black line, and 75% of the structures have 100% or more distance of mop up around those structures. So a lot of good work happening in the Genesee Valley. All right, moving around into November, again, patrol, mop up, no issues, everything's holding well. Again, no issues up here in the Dyer mountain area. We had crews up there monitoring, patrolling, and then the same thing as we dive down in the bottom half of branch 25. Crews were in there working and patrolling, mop up. We have one little area, we call it the fan area. It's actually right down here. It's just down in a boggy, mossy area. Crews went in there, set up sprinklers. So sprinklers will be running all day long trying to keep it wet, and it's just one of those things we'll have folks in there every day. So with that, that's end of report. Have a good afternoon and evening.
Okay, thank you. Once again, that was Chief Ian Satterfield, the operations chief for the East Zone. The next speaker we have for you tonight from the Lassen County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Dean Groudon.
All right, good evening, everyone. Today we have no new warnings or orders in Lassen County. Over the last couple days, we've been able to make some reductions from orders to warnings. Some of the ones yesterday, the primary ones, were from Raker. Now this is in the Milford area along 395, from Raker to Milford Grade on the west side of 395. And then some of the areas west of Susanville were also reduced from order to warning. There were no real homes in that area except for Corver Road, where you have some seasonal cabins. Those areas were reduced from orders to warnings. And then today we were able to reduce one zone on the east side of 395 in the Milford area from Milford Grade to Flux Road, the Flux Road intersection. And for up-to-date information, I recommend that you go to community.zonehaven.com. And we changed that system as we issue those changes. They're done like within less than 5 minutes. So that information is live. If you're seeing what you think is old information, you might refresh the page you're looking at, and that'll help ensure that you're looking at the most recent version. We continue to evaluate these orders and warnings each day, and we'll continue to make changes when it is safe to do so. Now I want to shift gears a little bit to a couple things unrelated to the Dixie fire specifically. But today we had another fire on Wingfield Road. It was an intentionally set fire. It's still being investigated by my deputies as well with the help of CAL FIRE. It just reminds us of the hazards of doing any kind of burning or having any kind of open flame in the outdoors right now with our current conditions. And that case will end up likely resulting in criminal charges. So we just want people to be very careful with any kind of fire or open flame in the outdoors right now. And a little note on the Beckworth Complex fire. For the people of Lassen and Plumas County, we didn't really have much of a break between the Beckworth Complex fire and the Dixie fire. And so there were a lot of losses in the Beckworth Complex also. And we received notice that the U.S. Small Business Association approved physical and economic injury disaster loans for victims of that Beckworth fire. That was as of September 3rd. So if you want some information on that, you can go to our Lassen County Sheriff's Office Facebook page for that information. Now back to this fire. and really all the fires going on right now. I want to thank all the personnel assigned to this and all the other fires around the state for their hard work, for putting their lives on the line to keep us all safe. I want to thank the people of Lassen and Plumas County for their ongoing support, cooperation, and patience. We are going to make it through this, and we're going to make it through it together. Be safe, and God bless.
Thank you, Sheriff Crowden. Our final speaker this evening, we have for you Unified Incident Commander, Chief Mike Minton.
Good evening, everybody. Mike Minton, the Unified Incident Commander here, representing the federal agencies and the Unified Command Structure here with CAL FIRE Team 1 on the west zone of the incident. So we're on day 55 of what is the second largest wildfire in California's history, 14th most destructive wildfire in California's history, and it's been occurring here in Lassen and Plumas counties. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 48 days ago, I was assigned on the east zone of the fire, working in a partnership with CAL FIRE Team 1 out of Quincy, and was here for the early stages of the evolution of this fire. So having been a previous resident of Lassen County, started my career 30 years ago here in Susanville. This is not typical of the kind of fires that folks in Plumas and Lassen County have experienced in the last couple of decades. But it's very symptomatic of what we're seeing in the state with drought conditions and some of the conditions of the fuels in the forests and on your public lands and private lands here in these counties. So difficult, very difficult fire. Lots of challenges associated to it. The good news is there's been a tremendous amount of progress made over the course of the last 55 days to just try to keep pace with things, and we're finally starting to get in front of some of the areas that have been amongst the most challenging. So some great progress, and you heard from the operations section chiefs of just where we're at today. Certainly some areas of concern that are the focus and priority areas to continue to work on in the 395 corridor in Dixie Valley, up off of Highway 44 in Bogard, and then in Lassen Volcanic National Park. There was a question about, when will fire be contained? And I think the question was specifically in Lassen National Park. The weather's going to dictate an awful lot of being able to give you a specific answer to that question. The forecast that we have right now for the next 7 days or so is a little bit of instability, which means that we could see some unfavorable winds in the next 3-4 days. But we have a fairly high level of confidence in some of the primary and alternate lines that are out there on the ground now. It's really a little too early to say exactly when we'll have full containment in the national park, but at this point I think it's safe to say it's more than a week away from being real close to that. But great progress and some improving working conditions for a lot of our firefighters. Really appreciate the patience that these communities and these counties have exhibited over the course of the last 55 days with the increase in your populations, with all the firefighters that have been here to assist, and everything that comes with that. We're tired, but we're still heavily engaged and just as eager as a lot of the folks out there in the counties are to get this thing wrapped up. So we've got some good plans and a lot of good effort, and we'll stay engaged to the very end on this. So thanks for your time. I appreciate it this evening.
Thank you, Chief. Once again, that was Unified Incident Commander Mike Minton. Just to remind you, earlier today we were experiencing technical difficulties here in base camp regarding our ability to produce a live stream video for you. We are currently taping the live stream. You are still able to ask questions on the Facebook page that we have up for the LMU. But just to let you know, we will be showing the recording immediately after our live stream as soon as we are able. With that being said, most of the questions tonight were answered during the presentation from the speakers. We'll now move on to the period of answering a few of those outstanding questions, and we'd like to bring up our Operations Section Chief, Mike Wink.
Okay, the couple questions that had this evening is a West Prospect, and was there any firing going on a West Prospect? So here on West Prospect, below the repeater site, from the lava flow over to the Rail Canyon, there's been no fire efforts in there. It's mostly holding and mop up. So if you did see burning conditions up there, that's just the fire consuming itself. We haven't done any firing up here on West Prospect. And then the next question was, what is the situation for Old Station? So once again, we have a line here on West Prospect and just on the other side of Raker Peak. We're considering that, primary line as we work on the fire's edge, but we've got this as primary and secondary, contingency, and then additional lines around the values at risk in the Old Station area, and that encompasses all the subdivisions and all the geographical area. And our work right now is focusing on egress and ingress corridors. They feel like the efforts on the primary, secondary, and contingency lines are in place and appropriate, and that's why we're working on the egress and ingress corridors. The next question is the status of the Janesville spot. So the Janesville spot, this 30,000 acre piece here, it's been in mop-up for almost 2 weeks now. We continue to find little hot spots on the Janesville grade, but for the most part, all that's looking really good. Feeling really good about that 30,000 acre spot fire. So while efforts do continue in there, things continue to be positive. Thank you.
We'd like to thank all the presenters for their information. If you would like to find the evacuation maps for Plumas, Lassen, and Butte counties, you may find those listed on their respective websites. Incident updates will be provided at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. We will continue to provide the Facebook and the YouTube Dixie incident update every evening, and we invite you to join us tomorrow for the live stream briefing of the Great Basin Team 1. That live stream may be found on the CAL FIRE Lassen Modoc Facebook page, the Plumas National Facebook page, or the Lassen National Forest Facebook page. In the meantime, you may go to INCIWeb and search under the Dixie incident for the latest information. You may also go to the CAL FIRE homepage at www.fire.ca.gov. Please continue to follow social media platforms for the Lassen National Forest, Plumas National Forest, and CAL FIRE LMU. Finally, at the end of this presentation, we will have for you on screen QR codes which will link you to our live presentations and email updates. We sincerely thank you, and we appreciate your time this evening. Please be safe.